Hi, everybody. I'm Carissa Blades Tiley. I'm an actress on this season of The Cleaning Lady. I play an FBI agent. I'm a host. I've done tons of panels at Sundance Film Festival and Santa Fe Film Festival, as well as after shows for ABC and many fan forums. I'm really excited everyone is here today, and we're just going to go through and do some quick intros of everybody who's on here. So I am just going to go in the order of how people are on my screen. Phil.
Hi.
Hi. Good morning.
I'm Phil. Good morning. Nice to meet you, Carissa. I am Phil Groves. I used to run worldwide distribution over at IMAX, working with all of the studios and all of the best filmmakers, which was a fun sandbox to be in. And I left the business world of IMAX, and I was a film buyer for a couple of large exhibitor chains before that. So I left IMAX to chase my more creative impulses and wrote and produced an IMAX documentary, which has been playing worldwide ever since the fall of 2020, and is still on screen in many places around the world. So I am currently working on writing and producing more feature films, and just waiting for one of them to land.
And next up we have James.
Hi, and nice to meet you too, Carissa. I'm James. I'm the co-founder of Vabble, something I've been working on for a very long time. And previous to that, I was a manager for Vodafone, specifically the Vodafone TV products. Got in blockchain and crypto back in 2016, and just been having a fun time ever since.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Joanna.
Lovely to meet you, Carissa. So Joanna Miles. I've been working in theatrical distribution for about 25 years, and I've worked in many disciplines such as booking, advertising, promotions, and publicity. I'm currently consulting with some international sales agents and international film festivals, finding the best places for their films and driving talent to these festivals for maximum exposure. And I'm very happy to be part of the Vabble world.
Awesome. Thank you. Connor, I still see you on mute. So Barry, if you could go next, that would be amazing.
Sure thing. Hey, Carissa, nice to meet you. My name is Barry Chamberlain. I have been a media executive for almost 30 years, predominantly in the distribution side, licensing content around the world. Post-theatrical mostly. Started my career in theatrical, but then moved into video and then television, which was predominantly my role as president of distribution for CBS and Paramount for about 20 years. And I left that at the end of 2020 and have been advising and consulting businesses along the way, and happy to be a part of the Vabble team because I believe that there's so much disruption going on in this industry right now that there's great opportunities for companies like Vabble to take it to a new level.
Last, but certainly not least, is John. You've been in the entertainment industry for how many years now?
Too many years to recount. Don't like revealing that, but hi Carissa, thanks for having us. And actually, I know Carissa. We've worked behind the scenes on a couple of projects that are in pre-production and development. But I am currently a producer, an independent movie producer, and happy to be a part of the content advisory board here at Vabble. Love the team and love the other board members, and very excited about what we have to offer here. I started my career in television and very quickly moved to the motion picture side of the business, where I spent the bulk of my career working for a handful of movie studios. Most notably, I worked at Universal Pictures for over 20 years, rose through the ranks there to become executive vice president of distribution and marketing, and was kind of at the crossroads of those two divisions, keeping both of those teams aware of what the other team was doing. as well as managing a couple of in-house teams for marketing and for distribution. And very, very excited to be here on this podcast today.
With so many years of experience, what would you say from the beginning of your career until now is the thing that's changed the most in the entertainment industry?
Wow, that's a great question. You know, a lot has changed since I've been a part of this business, and I'm sure everyone has similar feelings. Probably like distribution for the longest time was kind of, you know, like the same process over and over again, and that was true even at the beginning of my career. We used to say you do the same thing different week. We would do the same, you know, the same strategy for every movie. And then probably I would say in the early 2000s, you started to see a change as you saw, you know, DVD, you know, software, actual disc on hardware rather, disc and digital files and all of that disrupted the industry. But I would say streaming, which now is about 20 years old itself. So streaming is no longer a new technology, and it's ripe for change. But like I would say, you know, the distribution models and how they have progressed over the last years are probably the biggest thing that changed in this side of the business and this space that I work in.
Barry, I feel like I'm going to also throw that same question to you, just because I feel like you and John have similar type backgrounds.
Yeah, for sure. You know, when I think back about how people consume content today, it really just, you know, became incredibly revolutionary how, you know, the control became part of the user, right? You could watch what you wanted on your time frame. You could watch things without commercials. Hey, wow, incredible. You know, Netflix has changed our lives in so many ways of how we consume content. And, you know, they are the gold standard in terms of the technology standpoint. And it's amazing when you think about how they're now a very mature business. They are no longer talking about subscriber levels. They're only just talking about their revenue and their profitability, which is sort of an indicator of a mature business now. I go back to thinking of when Netflix came to my company and started talking about, okay, we're interested in licensing some of your content for streaming, and they're going to pay a lot of money, and which they did, and we had to take it because as a studio, had your quarter to quarter and annual, you know, revenue targets that you needed to hit, and this was like the gold rush. That has changed, and it has really completely disrupted the way the whole industry is dealing with content now. So, I mean, that's a big loaded question of how has it changed. I think I would look at it as like today and these days is the biggest changes in media that I can think of in the last 30 years. You know, you thought DVD was going to replace broadcast television. No, I mean, it was just an adjunct. You know, VHS and Beta were going to replace broadcast television. But the way technology, none of those occurred, you know. I mean, there still is a place for, you know, television for, I think, you know, live events and news, breaking stuff, you know, that people can get around. But the consumption of entertainment has really dramatically changed. And you could do it on your own at different price points that were used to be controlled by others. You'd have to go to the theater to watch a movie when it first came out, and that's now different. It's just dramatically like nothing we've seen.
Yeah, we're definitely at a time that anyone can be a consumer. I mean, it's crazy with how many platforms and different ways there are to view and absorb content. I mean, I have very young children, and even they are consumers of content. So just like the amount of spaces there are uh, is just astronomically different than there used to be.
For sure. It used to be controlled by, a handful of companies, a handful of studios. And as John was saying earlier, there's 70 years of sort of the way content was released for the public. Now, it can come in any form or fashion, short form content. Your kids probably, and my kids as well, they consume a lot of short form content. I think TikTok or Instagram are like equally competitors to a major studio. It's just different, but there's incredible content consumption. It's just how it's being consumed is I don't. There's so many like big words you can use, but it's just so different than what we grew up on.
I think
and
it's
exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting, Barry, and I think it's interesting that you point out, Netflix and some of the more legacy streamers, they're not young companies anymore. And it wasn't that long ago that Netflix wasn't even, reporting any sort of metrics. And now I saw in the trades last week, they're going to go back to not reporting, subscriber numbers, because that's kind of a sign of a mature business. It's not a sign of a bad business by any means, but it's a sign of a business that is maturing, that they're no longer going to post their subscriber numbers. Almost makes you think they've sort of reached like a critical mass in a way.
Yeah,
or
for sure.
Continue to grow as they had, in previous quarters.
And then Joanna, I know that you had talked about, the visibility with festivals and everything, getting stars. So that's bringing awareness to your projects. How have things changed for you over the industry?
Yeah, in a way, a film festival turns out to be the only way for some of these filmmakers to get their film seen, because usually the film festival would be the jumping off point for you to get distribution. But because the distribution funnels have sort of shriveled up, there's no place to go after your film has shown in a film festival. So in a way, Vabble would create this platform where you could go next, and sort of get some word of mouth and amplify the messaging for your film in some way in order to help you get a traditional distribution deal, or maybe you stay on Vabble and ride the wave. So it's tough out there, especially for independent film. And I come from the world of independent film. And I worked on, The English Patient and all those highbrow award-worthy films. And I talk to my friends who are still in distribution these days, and they're it's frustrating. They're just hitting their heads against a wall because they just can't find the audiences for those types of movies anymore. So, in a way, I hope that Vabble opens these doors so some of these filmmakers can get their work seen, because I think, there are a lot of new voices out there that just aren't getting that chance.
Phil, I'm going to also throw that question over to you. I know it's very broad, but for you, how have things changed in the near years?
Well, Barry and John and Joanna have definitely touched on several aspects that we all understand. I'm lucky that I get to play with a bunch of smart people on the Vabble board. But the thing that I'll add is that while the business has innovated to adopt new viewing behaviors of new consumers, they aren't done innovating. And that's what makes Vabble so interesting, that they are looking to push the boundaries once again and innovate further in a way that I think will it'll offer a great platform for filmmakers to become a part of. And then Joanna touched on us a little bit with the films that are often only seen in these festivals. My firsthand experience as I'm trying to get other projects off the ground show that the legacy buyers of content are tightening their belt right now. They're not making as much product as the marketplace is demanding. So that creates a vacuum that's going to send really great films potentially to a platform like Vabble, so that they have a place for consumers to see their dreams and their hard work come to reality. So it's I think all of these forces are pushing and adding pressure to giving a platform like Vabble that is unique in many ways a chance to really get into the marketplace.
James, how can blockchain moving forward change the entertainment industry?
So speaking to kind of what Phil and Joanna really touched on was, those films that get through the film festival and they get seen at the film festival and have nowhere to go beyond that, need to tap into community. The newer digital environment is very community orientated. We can see how that really developed with the growth of Reddit. Reddit is a huge communal conversational system, and that just had a knock-on effect throughout the whole internet. And if a filmmaker is having trouble finding an audience for their movies, well, then using blockchain, and blockchain has really adapted that communal orientated mindset. Using blockchain, you're going to find an audience for your community, for your film, and that audience becomes a community. And with that community, they become a marketing engine. They become a revenue generating opportunity for you that you can go out and develop more films on at a later date if you wish. But going back to it, it is community. It's the focus on building a community around them as a brand, around them as an artist. And blockchain really unleashes that power, given the utility behind the digital assets. They're almost like a membership. And using that to engage and constantly re-engage those audience members who would normally find your film on the likes of, Netflix or some, other website where they purchase the movie. You watch it once and then you're gone. You're gone to the next film. You're gone to the next filmmaker. But with blockchain focused around community, using digital assets to re-engage those communities and become a huge lifetime valuable asset to you as a filmmaker, it can help just expand and drive your exposure and your entire career if you build it off a fundamental basis like that. So I think for blockchain, there's a lot of different avenues that will help filmmakers. There's also getting money back to the filmmakers faster, and it's more transparent, and there's less cooked books. But community is a huge central part of the filmmaker's journey in blockchain.
I also think for film and many kinds of content, there is a curiosity for the consumer about how things are made and being involved that so many people would like to be a part of. I am the moderator of the Westworld fans group on Facebook because I used to do an after show, and I remember when HBO, it was like The Sopranos, and you were like, yes, we're paying for this subscription model, but this is the best TV show that has ever been made to date, and everybody knew it. And I remember when Westworld came out and I was hosting, I was like, you guys, I've seen the first episode. This is about to be HBO's new thing. And every single person fought me. But then I was the most watched show on our channel. And everyone who had seen the first episode, it's like people want a space to go and talk about a project. And so I was already doing it there, and there wasn't so I was like, well, I have to create a Facebook page because there were just so many questions. Like my show could have been 5 hours long. And what I love about Vabble is it's like, yes, you would already know who your people are on the platform and could get into new projects that you found interesting and become real investors in. I mean, it's a very, very cool concept.
Yeah, it has that knock-on effect, and friend referrals are better than any AI algorithm, and the data can show that. A friend referrals a piece of content to you, it's better. So if you're in a community and you build friendships in that community, anything that person, people from that community refer to you, you're going to go and check out, and that's another huge part of the community aspect. Yeah.
Well, you think about it, James. A lot of movies. The first place where people saw it was in the theaters, right? And there's just so fewer number of titles where you can have that communal effect now, because the business doesn't support that level of community in the theater. And you used to the Fridays and the Saturday nights or whatever, you would slot into some seats and hear the groans and the crying and the laughter of other people around you. It's just in this digital age, there's just a lot less of that. So having a community effect authentically with people that you can trust, that are like-minded or share a similar interest, is just a lot of it is missing. And this is a great opportunity for that, to change that narrative. From being in the same room, but in a digital room, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean that's where the current streaming services, I feel have they've become very mature, and now they can't adapt and change as fluidly as we could as we can as a startup. Is that a lot of these streaming services are not social based UXs, social based user experiences, whereas prior to streaming services, nearly 99% of the time watching a movie was a communal experience, whether it be at the cinema like you mentioned, Barry, or you go to a DVD store or a videotape store and you rent your tape or DVD and you bring it home and you get some friends over, you get some popcorn, you get your family around, you'd all watch it. Whereas the streaming service seem to lack that in a digital age, and that's where we're super focused. Like we're all about the adoption of blockchain and using that technology to prove, that it is better for the world. But we're also, hyper focused on creating that digital environment, like you say, Barry. Creating those rooms where you can watch with people, you can invite people in to watch with you, and it's creating that kind of IRL experience we would have had prior to streaming services and bringing it back in a digital environment.
I like the intimacy. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just going to say that what I like about Vabble is the intimacy between the fans and the filmmakers that it offers up, not just through the accounting, where every dollar goes right to the filmmaker or participants included, but it gives this immediate access of the fans, which really doesn't exist on any other platform. And I think that's an opportunity that I look forward to being expanded upon.
Yeah, I once had a film critic tell me that there's an audience for every movie, basically, but the studios aren't making movies for specific audiences. The big guys out there in the business right now are making movies that hit a broad audience, as many people as they can get to show up, and that's what I think Vabble does so well. Vabble, filmmakers can make their own niche content and put it on the platform, and the audience can watch it. There's no middleman to prevent that from happening.
It's also like, I can't remember who I was talking to in this board, but the director's commentary, how we all missed having that on, when you bought your DVD or your Blu-ray and you had the director's commentary, and now the only way you can get that is if you buy a steel box or something like that. You don't get that anymore when you're on Netflix. You have to look for it on their YouTube page, or you have to do a deep dive to get that BTS, that behind the scenes inside stuff from the filmmaker. And hopefully Vabble will be able to bring that back.
We've done that, Joanna. Just at the click of a button, you're going to get all the BTS that you want.
You're in my head, and you already did it. There you go.
In case there's anybody who is listening to this who doesn't know about Vabble? I'm going to give this question to John just because I have a personal relationship with him. But can you quickly explain like how Vabble will disrupt the entertainment industry using blockchain? I know that is a huge, but just a quick breakdown in case there's anyone here who is dabbling and they're interested.
Yeah,
Can you
that's
maybe say
a
that?
really good question, Carissa, and it's like I will definitely leave the more techie talk to James and let him explain how the actual blockchain will make that happen. But like what I look at this is like there's kind of three main things that I see Vabble doing that sort of disrupt. And and I'm not even sure, like I get disruptors and that's a tech word and that's how you disrupt an industry. But I actually look at it like this, like I think the things that are gonna work for Vabble are gonna make it better. So who cares if it disrupts everything? It makes it better for the audience and for the filmmakers. And the three things, and I'll try to remember these off the top of my head, like I think artistic control is the first one. You're putting so much in the seat of the filmmaker, at the command of the filmmaker, that they really get to keep all of their artistic control when they're working with Vabble. So basically what they make, they can put on the Vabble platform, and it's basically seen by their audience exactly as they intended it to be seen by that audience. And then a big one is financial inefficiencies. Like right now, there's in the current distribution models for filmmakers, there's so many hurdles, like pick one. Like there's so many things that the middlemen sort of get in the way, or the distributors, because they've created these platforms or these business models, production companies and studios and streamers, they all take a piece of the action. And there's so many hurdles in the way of the filmmaker reaching directly to their audience. And then probably the one that I think is the most important is like right now there's limited distribution opportunities for filmmakers. There's only so many things that they can do right now in this business to get their content seen. And I think that's one of the things that blockchain will do. Helping Vabble as a streaming platform, the decentralized approach to everything, I think is really going to help the filmmakers, and ultimately the audience that we serve is the most important part, is getting them the content that they want to see. The funny thing, I'm on 3 or 4 streaming services. I don't think anyone I don't think anybody has all of the streaming services anymore. But it's like they're constantly suggesting things to me, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is not what I want to watch. Like the suggestions come up, and you're like, well, how did they get to here from what I just watched? But like that's the difference between Vabble. Like you'll be able to get niche content from content creators directly to people who want to consume it. Hopefully that answered your question. And any specific technical blockchain questions, I'll throw over to James.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I mean,
James?
for sure. Like from a technical perspective, smart contracts, Bitcoin was created in 2009, and it's the king. And fundamentally, what is cryptocurrency? It's all it is the movement of one person to another. Like from myself to you, Carissa, if I was moving money to you, I don't have to go through a bank. I don't have to go through all these different intermediaries. It's peer to peer. Okay, and then after Bitcoin came Ethereum. Well, there was other currencies in between, but next we'll say is Ethereum. And Ethereum coined the term smart contracts. And this is where it gets really interesting for filmmakers. Because with smart contracts, so a smart contract, all it is a piece of code, kind of just like the cryptocurrency, and it's validated on chain. So there's no intermediaries involved again. And that code is immutable. So it means it can never change. Once it's coded forever. So nobody can come in and adjust it and essentially fuck with it, whereas they can with traditional contracts. So the beauty of using smart contracts for filmmakers is that they can take full control over their distribution, just like John was saying. You're able to, as a filmmaker on Vabble specifically, you're able to come in and we've made it nice and easy for any filmmaker to use. They just fill out a form, and we take the information in that form and turn it into code. And all the information that they put in that form is written to a smart contract, which can never change. And some of that information includes the distribution of the revenue that the film generates. So, well, I'll explain it as, maybe you have 4 people on your team that you need to share revenue with. You can assign yourself 50%, and break it down as a percent for each other individual. So then when someone rents the movie or purchases the movie from you as a filmmaker, the money goes from the consumer directly to you and who else you defined. There's no one else getting involved and someone transferring money in and taking a bit off the top during that transfer. It's directly from the consumer to the filmmaker. And so the money's going from, where filmmakers traditionally are like, bottom level, they'll receive money last after everyone else gets their piece. We've moved them from the bottom to the very top. And I think that's very important. You can't be an artist. Let's treat a filmmaker as an artist. It is their art. You can't be an artist and not get paid rightfully. But the way the system's set up right now, they're not getting paid rightfully. They're not getting paid what they should be truly paid. You wouldn't go to you wouldn't hire a builder to build your house and then pay, everyone else and pay the builder last, and he just gets a little bit at the end. The builder gets paid first because they're building the house. The filmmaker built that film. It's their film. They should get paid first. So with blockchain and with smart contracts, we've achieved that, and it's fully immutable and autonomous, and no one can change with it. No one can fuck with it, and it's better for the filmmaker. But then you can also look at the distribution side. The way we've structured and built out the streaming service, they have full control over their distribution, meaning that they can set where and when and for how long this film can distribute. For instance, we'll say that their content is licensed for North America, but they have the rest of the world. Well, they can block out North America and just distribute to the rest of the world. And then the North American license expires and they can just turn on North America. And it goes for any continent or any jurisdiction. And they can do that all with a click of a button, all using blockchain. Again, fully transparent and online. And again, it's all in their control, so it's important.
Too. Yeah.
Without divulging who this person is, one of my very good friends is a producer on a TV show that's now on Hulu. So I'm not going to say what it is, but the two main stars of the show were both on a very sappy teen drama that had 14 seasons. Like, they're very well-known people, and they crowdsourced the pilot for their show because they could not get a studio to understand or want to buy their concept, which is, like, lightly based on their reality now, like being so famous but being very typecast, which is funny because on the reality TV show side, everyone was trying to get them to do a reality TV show about their life. And their biggest issue is after they've sold to Hulu, Hulu did one day of promotion for them where they're like on the front of the main page. And then they don't have any of Hulu's data on who is watching their content. So obviously there's going to be some fans, right, who know of them from their old show or the original investors who gave them money to be producers. But how do they know how to renegotiate a contract with them for season 2, 3, 4, and 5 if they don't know who, right? Because Hulu obviously has all of the metrics on who's watching the show, what time of day they're watching it, what they have targeted ads for the consumer. I was just hoping, Joanna, like, you could talk about like real world examples of like how the entertainment industry just isn't working for people right now.
Sure. I can actually give my husband and I were scrolling through Netflix, Apple Plus last night, and we are big fans of Zack Snyder, and did not realize that part 2 of, and now the name of the thing has
Rebel
left.
Moon.
Thank
Rebel
you.
Moon.
Did not realize that part 2 of Rebel Moon was out. So, and I would think that, I would get served on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok because I had watched the first one, that I would have gotten served this, or he would have gotten served it because the account's under his email, but nothing. So it's just sort of like, okay, and it didn't even come up on, when you go to Netflix and it comes up on the hero page, not even there. So I was just like, whoa. So I mean, we watched it last night, of course, but it's I don't understand the streaming marketing plans when they don't want to promote their biggest titles. Some of them they do, some of them they don't. It's very arbitrary. I know from working on theatrical film, these days it's very targeted because the budgets are so much smaller, and it's a very most of the films that I work on are for a very specific demographic. But it is, I mean, it's the Wild Wild West out there. I've seen, the only campaigns I've seen that have worked are for tent poles, but I mean, they're throwing a lot of money at the wall. And as John mentioned, they're going for 4 quadrants, sometimes 8 quadrants. Like, it is everyone and everything. So it's, if someone asked me to market a film theatrically today, I would be like, okay, I don't know how. I don't know how. I'm out of practice. I'm also out of practice, but I just like it would be so frustrating, I would think. And John, maybe you can
see every single person is nodding their head. Sorry,
No, I mean,
looking through, I'm like, every single person is nodding.
yeah, Joanne is onto something there, and it's like I think it's just inherent in the legacy streamers that, now that they're spending all this money on original content, like everyone's heard of binge watching, and I think there's a new term, it's called comfort watching, or comfort binging, where it's like, a lot of shows that have multiple seasons, like I'm talking like 10 seasons, like Seinfeld and Friends and like Family Guy, any show that has, The Office is a really big comfort watch show. And it's like, I've heard that the legacy streamers don't like people really watching those shows over and over again. And that's why so often when you finish watching one of those shows, like when you finish the series, they'll put something in there like, hey, you enjoyed Family Guy, now check out this, streaming original. And it's like, wait, this doesn't have anything to do with what I was just watching. But it's like you're saying, Joanna, it's like they're kind of firing a shotgun to see, just shotgun at a wall approach kind of thing. Whereas, like certain types of content, like I have several shows that I comfort watch, and it's like I would love to see, even older shows that aren't available on any streaming platform. Like that's what I would love to see Vabble do, is kind of have a library button where you can go and find really old TV shows from maybe even from like the 50s and 60s and 70s, and watch those for comfort binging.
That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
Well, the part of the issue is the explosion of content that we've seen come across all of these platforms. And Joanna, when she was talking about the challenges of marketing a film, these days it would be like marketing a snowflake in a blizzard. It's going to be hard to even spot it, let alone draw specific attention to it. And I think that's where social media becomes part of the answer, and building these communities that Vabble is focused on doing that will push through the marketing, because the audience is motivated to find the content on their own. And Joanna, I had a similar Netflix experience where, the algorithms cannot second guess my viewing behavior if their life depended on it, because that splash page that comes up with all of the thumbnails never guesses anything that I'm interested in. And it's only because I talk to somebody who says, you got to check out this show. And I go, this show shows up nowhere where the algorithms should be pushing it. And so I have to go digging through the platform to find the show myself. And again, it's through social contact that that affects my viewing behavior.
I've found that using whether it be Netflix, Prime, Disney, I've found myself to start using them less and less and less because of that problem, Phil. The splash page, when it comes up, it's not suggesting anything I really want to watch, and it's not basing what their suggestions are not based on what I've watched previously. And if they are, they're doing a bad job of it. So my viewing habit has completely changed to where I'll go to the likes of YouTube, or on our Xbox, I'll go into the Microsoft Store and I'll actually purchase the movie to save myself time, save myself heartache. I'll go and purchase rather than just try and find it on a streaming service. And I think a lot of people are in that same boat because we're looking at TVOD is growing year on year. And so people are starting to go, I want to spend less time trying to find my movie, going through garbage that I don't want to watch, and just buying it. And if you get the power of community behind that model, the snowball effect from referrals, some friend referrals, will be fantastic for filmmakers and also make the life easier for the consumer.
I also feel like, just as a parent, you're like one of the 4 topics that's always okay when you're at a child's birthday party or just in a random crowd of people is like, what are you watching? Everybody likes that topic. Everybody is watching something. And yeah, most of the things that I will then go invest my time in is like a person to person referral. And I'm way too online. Like, I'm online all the time. And yeah, something could advertise a movie to me on Twitter 15 times. But if I meet somebody that I know who's like, yes, I watched it and it wasn't a waste of 2 hours, that, means 10 times more than any type of advertising, no matter how cool it is. Because again, you guys are saying, yeah, you're marketing the snowflake and the blizzard. And there's just so many avenues that you are marketed on these days. Everyone is trying to find the next viral way to market something. And yeah, so much of that is random, and what is going on that day, and what's going on in politics that, it's like, it's very, very hard to know where your audience is going to see the marketing, what type of a consumer they are.
As humans, we have too many nodes of input.
Yes.
That's a huge problem.
Yeah, I'm working with some talent from Thailand right now, and they're on a TV show that I have never heard of, that I went on a deep dive on YouTube with, and I'm talking like maybe not Michael Jackson level fandom, but like, these girls are so popular. I have never heard of them before. I've asked my tweens in my family, who are these? No one. So there are like all these little pockets around the world. And this is the exciting part about Vabble, is the fact that it is global, that there are these pockets all over the world where there are super fans for a specific thing that we have no clue about here in North America. Like, that's exciting. Like, these little niches all over that are going to get some exposure through this platform.
It goes beyond.
I want to hear about that show later on, by the way.
It's bonkers.
It goes beyond. It goes beyond borders. It's beyond borders and culture. And there's, as you said, Joanna. There's pockets of entertainment and super fandom and all over the world. Even in North America, there's going to be pockets of super fandom that you or I or anyone in here will have never heard of. And building an entire streaming system that's focused on those communities will help snowball and broaden the reach for each of those, pieces of content. And another issue I see with, the current streamers is, I don't know what the decision is behind it, and maybe some of you guys can shed some light on it, but you'll have a series, and it's a pure example, Mindhunter, a series that I loved, not getting the funding to do the next season. Whereas if you have a community behind it, and it's kind of like Firefly, when that went off the screens, that was, the internet pretty much exploded. But if you have a community behind it that can rally behind it, and if you kind of engage the financing process through blockchain, which is something that Vabble will do in the future, those shows can live on. They're not dependent on a yes or a no from Netflix or another top level development studio.
Yeah,
It's
and
the
also
democratization of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actual, fandom and disappointment that we've all seen. It's been going on for a long time. There was this show when I was at CBS where fans sent a ton of peanuts to the head of the entertainment division because the peanuts were part of the storyline, and it posed a discussion internally of whether to revisit that show to continue on, but there probably wasn't any kind of crowdfunding available at this time. Now you've seen where some shows started on a particular platform and then moved to another platform because it may have not fit, the economics, the return on investment for that first platform, but the data that people saw may have that another platform may have seen was that audience will follow and actually is more appropriate on this particular platform. So there's lots of alternatives and opportunities, but there is a ton of content out there. And I think, in the olden days, you had limited shelf space, right? Now it's somewhat unlimited. And in the gold rush of trying to get subscribers, you had to have something new every week. It didn't necessarily mean that people actually had to watch it, but they had to be able to promote a platform needed to promote something. Actually, billboards in major cities like Netflix would put up the show. This is the new shiny show. It could be terrible, but it had faces and names and exposure. People were watching Suits like it was going out of style, or Friends, because it's a generationally popular show. That's where they were getting most of their viewing, not on this new shiny show that was getting all the attention on the streets. So it's really, really tricky. But a platform like Vabble can certainly help filmmakers find their audiences, cultivate, community, and build their careers. They may go to a bigger platform that's going to pay a bunch of money, but if we have scale on Vabble, they may be just happy to stay and create that direct relationship that they can truly, sow the fields and cultivate and create a great career on. So, there needs to be alternatives to the existing system, and I think people are seeing it, right now, from talent, producers, distributors like myself. It's happening. It's definitely happening.
Barry, you just touched on something really interesting. By the way, that's good. Not that the rest of it wasn't interesting, of course. No, but
just one thing.
Interesting. No, it's the one thing that stuck in my brain. Let's put it that way. With all of these companies, one of the realities that they have to deal with is they have a limited resource that they apply to the support of the content that's on their platform. And I'll call out HBO or Max in particular, where they're taking shows offline because they're trying to manage a budget, and they want to pay residuals or whatever, and so they're taking content off their platform in cases where, and this is a consequence of them having only so much room to pay out or to market or what have you, the shows that they actually have created. So it's and Vabble is limitless in this regard. It is the fan base of the show is the thing that'll lead to its survival or near obsolescence, whatever the case may be, not some mandate to only do 8 movies a year, for example, or to only have these shows on the platform because they don't want to manage all the accounting of having an infinite set of shows on the platform. So Vabble eliminates those boundaries completely.
Well, I'll go back. I'll take it a little different level. All those like Max and all the legacy companies that have their streaming services, all those companies are extremely challenged. They're trying to protect their legacy businesses, and because they have shareholders, right? And this transition to having your direct to consumer offering has been really, really a killer for all the major studios. HBO Max, in and of itself, with their Discovery, Warner Brothers Discovery, where their stock price is a quarter of what it was when that merger occurred, is just they can't afford to do things creatively, take risks. They pulled titles off of their service because they could use a tax break on them, on those investments. It has nothing to do about the content.
Right.
And then you think of, and there's a number of those scenarios going on with Paramount Plus and Hulu getting caught up in the Universal and Disney negotiations. Vabble on itself has no corporate overhead. Effectively, it's between the filmmakers and the users. There's no consideration
Gatekeeper.
for the impact of the. It's so clean. No gatekeepers. There's no moats. It's what if we can get people on the platform, we get content on the platform, it will just build, and we're not beholden to 10K reporting or things that will impact the ability to put great creative content that will satisfy an audience.
I think one of the biggest shows that I don't, for whatever reason it happened, but one of the biggest shows of recent years that we've seen move from one platform to another was Top Gear. It went from the BBC, and Amazon snapped that up and threw a bunch of money at them. And now we look at Top Gear on the BBC and it's done. But the Grand Tour, although it's being done, it probably won't continue for too much longer because of age, but it's not because of viewing. It's because of the age of the presenters. They're kind of done with it and they've had their ride. But a lot of the community or the audience, effectively the community who were watching it on BBC, went to Amazon. I'm one of them. So was my dad and then quite a number of my friends who had never used Amazon Prime prior to that. So it was a huge acquisition for Amazon Prime to get the user acquisition tactic. But from a content perspective, BBC shot themselves in the foot. I think when you have an environment like Vabble, and although I might be biased, if you have an environment like Vabble and you build a community on the platform where your audience live and exist, and you don't have the top level making decisions about the show, as you're saying, Barry, whether it be financial or for whatever else, there's no one to axe the show. There's no one to cut it off and it never be created again. So long as there's an audience and a community behind it, and it's the filmmaker or the studio who's behind that content have the freedom to do as they wish, with that piece of content and keep churning it out as long as there's an audience there for it and they're generating the revenue and it can fund the next, the next episode or next season or whatever way they want to structure it. So, as I said, I might be biased, but that's the way I see it at least.
I also just feel like there's such an opportunity there to get very huge content creators, because they would have, like Joanna's talking about Zack Snyder, and it's like, there's always a Snyder cut, right? There's always, and there is a market for that, so that is great. But you're like, but why is there the his cut and then the other cut and it's obvious that all of the people who are part of the vision, there's 15 people that aren't part of the vision that are putting, and yeah, it's like a lot of that has to do with like financial benefits. If you work at the studio and you're a producer brought onto somebody's show, you have to change, you feel like you have to insert a new character or a new theme so that you can say, yes, I'm the producer, instead of letting the original content creator just make their vision possible. And obviously there's no way to get around that, because the studio wants to, they know who their audience is, they have specific marketing plans, and so they have to have the one hot football player or the one, because they're like, well, this has worked on 50 other shows, so let's try that again. Can anybody talk about how like Vabble keeps artistic control for the original content creator? Can any of you guys go put input into what people are making, since you're on the board?
What I would, before we jump over there, what I would want to say, you're talking about streamers or, studios that have the data. That's something that we really wanted to give to filmmakers. It was one of the biggest cries, speaking to my friends who make films, is they never receive data reports. They don't know who their audience is. They have an idea on the streaming service, but they don't truly know, because they don't get that information from the streaming service. They don't know how many views they get, et cetera, et cetera. So we wanted to develop that tooling to give to the filmmaker, where they know the full demographics, they know the views they're getting, they know the average watch time. And that's only going to make them a better filmmaker, because they'll learn more about their audience and know how to deliver better to their audience. That's vitally important in today's day and age, where data is everything. And especially you're talking about the big creators on the likes of TikTok or YouTube, albeit they might be a slightly different vein of content. They're still using data to curate what type of media to produce. And filmmakers need that data too. Of course they do. So that's something we really wanted to focus in. Sorry to steer the conversation a little bit, but
But and not to let go of that point, James. I've always likened box office to applause as a form of feedback for the filmmakers that get their movies into the theatrical space. So knowing how many people are watching your show or your film or series is a form of applause. And when you think about stand-up comics who develop their material in smaller venues, and of course they're keeping the stuff that get the big laughs and they're dumping the stuff that gets no reaction, they curate and develop their content through that engagement and interaction with an audience. And so Vabble offers, because of the transparency that Vabble offers, the filmmakers and creators will get that kind of feedback. And like you say, it'll sharpen their abilities.
And Vabble doesn't have any kind of interest in keeping that data because to themselves. There's no leveraging that data in the next negotiation, which is what the other streamers would utilize. It's like it's a really good show, but don't tell the producer because they're going to want more money from us. I mean, Vabble doesn't play in that game. So happy to help that filmmaker rights holder know where their audience is and how they're responding, because it's just good for everybody, right? And then Babble's a great partner for filmmakers, and you can stand by that.
Yeah, and I'll even take the flip side of that argument, Barry. And it's like, obviously analytics are very important, and direct access between the content creators or the filmmakers and the audience is amazing. And I think it's what's going to drive this platform. But like, there's also the other side of it. Like one of the big hot topics with Disney Plus right now is, the fan base of Star Wars is loudly accusing Disney of ruining Star Wars. And it's like they have so much direct feedback from the audience, where the audience is saying things, and without getting political, they're saying things like, Star Wars isn't woke content, Star Wars isn't this, Star Wars isn't that. And it's like Disney seems to be kind of basing things on analytics, and a broad spectrum of audience, trying to grow the Star Wars audience in effect, versus just paying attention to kind of like the faithful, the the acolytes, to kind of jokingly point out their next show on Disney Plus that has a Star Wars name. It's like, the people who carry the banner for Star Wars, they've grown up with this. They know what makes that content great. And it's almost like Disney seems to be paying attention to something else, trying to broaden or expand Star Wars into a direction that its current fan base doesn't really want to see it go. And I think that's the flip side of this. Like, the filmmakers can listen directly to their audience on the Vabble platform and actually kind of craft content based on gut versus analytics, or vice versa. But I just think that's worth pointing out too.
Can we explain to people, like, let's say I'm Susie, filmmaker. At what point, when you talk about, like, you're in there, you're looking at the space. How do you pick what projects come up first? We talked about the hero screen with Netflix, but how is it an equitable distribution? Like, how could I assure Susie, filmmaker, that her project that she puts up, that's her directorial debut, that it will have the best chance on Vabble?
So we do have the big hero sections, and we do have it, in categories as we go down. One of the biggest things we're going to be doing with filmmakers is helping them build that community. So, if it's a big debut for Susie, and it is of quality that people expect to pay for or to rent, we'll work with Susie to build a community around her film prior to it being released. So then when it is released into the platform, she immediately has, pull a number out of the sky here, she has 1,000 people ready to watch it. And the way we've built out our user interface is that each of those 1,000 people will invite up to 4 people to come watch it with them. And then that creates that snowball effect. So when it creates that snowball effect, you go from 1,000 to 4,000 people very quickly. And each of those 4,000 people, provided that, they enjoyed the content, will start following Susie on our platform. So anything that she releases in the future, they'll get notified that Susie has released this film. But they'll also funnel down into her community, where they'll speak about her production, speak about her, what she's working on next, and speak directly to her, which is vitally important. Again, back to that community-orientated environment. And then what we'll be doing is, over time, we're developing out an algorithm based on, views and watch time and so on and so forth. So we'll, as a movie performs better and as the community grows, they'll kind of float up to the top. But we'll be still working with each individual filmmaker and their community. So it's going to be a big fight between communities to see who gets higher rankings and so on. Kind of like up votes, down votes on Reddit in a way. But we're trying to make that each filmmaker, when they do come on, it's a level playing field for every single individual. And, it's not fighting for a space for one day and it's gone again. Each person is going to be, almost handheld through the process and build their community. And that should snowball for each individual filmmaker. Because, we all use a lot of content. We were all on different social medias, and that's fine, but once you're involved in a community, your engagement goes up 10x. And I talked about, humans having too many kind of input nodes. Well, if you're a part of a community, those input nodes actually mean less to you. And you're focused on more of being involved because it's personal, it's intimate. As Phil said earlier, it becomes an intimate experience, and that's what really resonates with you. So provided that we work well with the filmmaker, for Susie, all those people and all those audiences that she onboards and converts to be part of her community will stay there, and they'll create that snowball effect, so she'll get more and more and more views.
And then can you also just kind of talk about, like, in layman's term for some of the technology, how the transparency would work? Let's say I'm an investor on the platform at this point, right? I'm using cryptocurrency and I'm buying into Project Y. And I'm like, everybody in the community, we all love this. There's like a certain tier. Let's say I'm an actual producer on it. Let's say for this project, they only need 100 grand. So if I put in 15 grand, I'm like a real producer on this. How would I know when I was going to get my money back, if I ever would, or a payout? Like, how is that transparent for people? Because, the people that are going to be investing in this are like, a lot of them are not traditional producers, and they've never put money into something that was like a creative project, let alone something as crazy as a film.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about how that would work?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, there's never a guarantee of return. We never want to guarantee anyone of a return on investment, ever. But what you want to look at from an investor's perspective is, how much, okay, the first piece of criteria is, have they made a film before? If they have not, well, then it becomes a higher risk immediately, which is fine. So we move on to the next step, and that kind of goes back to what I was just talking about, is community. Has this filmmaker built a community already? Are they just new into Vabble and they're just trying it out and they're just like, here's my film. If I get funding, great. If not, I'll move on. So there you have to balance out all these different pieces of criteria first. So we'll just take a hypothetical situation. We'll say it's Susie's first film. She's gone in for financing for 100,000. She has made one or two shorts before, so she has experience, and now she's going into a fully fledged feature production. Susie has built a community already. We've helped curate that community around her about the film that she wants to make, so she has 1,000 people in there. So I know immediately as an investor that I have 1,000 people that want to purchase this movie. And if I then project how many of those 1,000 people will invite other people, and how many of those other people invite other people, I can start doing basic calculations on the potential return if I help to produce this movie. But then we look at the transparency of it. That's all on the blockchain, and we provide an interface where you can view how much each film is generating at any point based on how many views and how many rentals. And then we also provide an explorer where an investor can go on chain and actually see, how much this actual film is generating, per month, per week, per day. So using that blockchain as an open ledger, which is essentially just like an open ledger, like a book, and each transaction is written in there, I can view that, and we're giving people a user interface to actually see that.
So you're saying even the watcher will be able to see how much money it's made?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody at any time, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, can actually see how much money is made by a particular movie, and that's vitally important. However, back in the blockbuster days, there was a judge, and this judge was renting movies from, I don't know, maybe it was from Blockbuster, and his full rental data was shared by one of the people that worked at Blockbuster. And he happened to be a federal judge, and he brought in a law where, you cannot divulge people's rental privacy, rental data. So, I can't share, or if I own Blockbuster, I can't share, what other movies people have rented. So what we actually had to do there was, we can't show what movies a consumer is renting, because that's a breach of that law. data privacy. So what we did was we basically bunched all the transactions for all the movies over a course of an hour together and put them into a pool of money. And then from that pool of money, we share out the actual revenue to each individual filmmaker. It's kind of like a mixer. It mixes up all the transactions. So each filmmaker or an investor and whoever else is involved in the process will receive their money, and they'll see it on chain, how much it's generating, but they won't see where the money's coming from in a sense of what person actually rented the movie. And that was something we stumbled on only this year in terms of law, and it took a lot of work to repair that because we are fully GDPR compliant and we wanted to stay that way. That was a tricky thing to get over.
And then I just wanted to do like one more little scenario so people to understand the platform better. Is there a space for, let's say it's not a bestseller, but I'm the author of a book and I want it to be made into a film, but I have no film connections, right? But let's say using direct model, I have it on Amazon and it's just me and Amazon. So whoever, I know exactly how many people have bought my book and exactly what amount of money is coming to me. So yeah, maybe it's not a bestseller, but let's say I've sold 300,000 books and I know that all the people, who go on and are like, this is the best book I've read in 10 years. This should be made into a movie. Is there a way that I could put my book on Vabble and then be partnered with a producer or with one of you guys? Or how would that work if I have the original IP of something?
We have plans to develop tooling for licensing IP, whether that be ourselves or through a third party. There's a couple of different infrastructures out there currently using blockchain as a technology for licensing IP. And we're going to either integrate with them or build it out ourselves where someone can do exactly that. They can bring their book in if they own the IP, prove that they own the IP, and either license it or get connected with people who might want to make a film based on the book. Like we plan to expand through different medias over time. Over the next 10 years, we want to go beyond movies. We want to do music. We want to do books. We want to do so much more, but focusing on kind of movies right now. Licensing IP is a huge milestone that we want to achieve over the next 18 to 24 months. So I hope once we launch the financing side of our platform, that the IP licensing will be integrated into that as well. And for sure, you can come in and make a movie about your book.
I have to write it first. Can you guys talk about how Vabble will integrate all the other social media elements, Twitter, fan pages, like how did you design the community-centric model so that it's easy to get all of the information about a show on your platform?
One of the biggest phrases I like to use is when I'm describing Vabble is it's a hybrid between Netflix and Snapchat. Where we've taken some of the best elements of Snapchat, that being group DMs and video calls, and we've integrated that into Netflix essentially. And we built, that was like our fundamental framework. Get a streaming service, get a library page, get direct messages, group messages, and video calls, which are essentially co-watch. You can be on video call and watch a movie with someone at the same time of up to 4 people. And using that framework, we started growing, okay, what can we do next? And how would this look? And we got to a point where if we'll just say, for instance, we are reviewing as a community the next film to come onto Vabble. It's essentially like a YouTube player page, but where the description is on the left-hand side and the trailer is on the right-hand side. So I can read the information about the film and join that community, and I can watch the trailer about the film and I like it, I can get involved in it, and then it's on the streaming service. So we built out a core framework, a core social UX, and then build off of that. And yeah, that's what we've been doing for the last 3 years.
So if I'm a watcher and there's a new show called oh my gosh, I don't know. There's a new show that's on Vabble. I'm there from the beginning. I'm already part of the community. I want John, Barry, Joanna, Phil, and James to all come watch with me and have popcorn. I understand that you're saying there's the chat, but like we can have our own private chat, right? And then there's a separate one that's maybe for all users.
Yeah. So we haven't actually developed out the global chat yet.
Okay.
That's going to incur quite extensive infrastructure, but we've developed the intimate one where, you know, you can invite all of us in to watch with you. You pay for the movie and you invite us all in. It's kind of like when you go, like the example I used earlier, going to the DVD store, the videotape store, and renting the movie, invite your friends over. Same situation in a digital environment. The way we see that expanding over time, if we look at the likes of TikTok and Twitch, where people watch people play video games, at some point in the future, we can see it as people watching movies. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there that take a lot from what we call reaction videos. You'll see them all over, you know, TikTok and YouTube. People find a comfort in watching a video with someone else, even though they're only reacting to it. And there's a lot of people out there in the world that don't have that intimacy, and you know, are using digital platforms to try and, you know, engage in that intimacy, you know, watching reaction videos, or on Twitch watching someone stream playing a video game. It becomes part of a daily routines. And we could see in the future, whereas, you know, you might have someone that really enjoys a movie or really enjoys a director, but don't quite have friends that enjoy it, you know, and they want to watch it with other people. Well, they'll be able to come in and watch people watching the movie. And I think that's a really interesting concept for the future.
There's a actress, her name's Milana Weintraub, and she's the AT&T girl. She's Lily. She's one of my friends. But we used to do a thing at a small theater in downtown LA where people would come watch a movie and we would do stand-up comedy jokes during it. And we would not watch it before, so it was just live. And it's very fun. And it was so cool because people in the audience would start shouting stuff too. And I think that type of community is, obviously there's a want for that. The reason The Bachelor is so, people still watch it, is the fandom. Every single season is the same. People watch it because they do not like it. And they watch it to make fun of it with other people. Like they have viewing parties, like Howard Stern watches The Bachelor and he has like a little pointer, and like his group of famous friends will like point at something on the screen and other people can watch. And so, yeah, so many people want to watch with other people.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like the same thing, like, you know, during COVID when there were a bunch of people not having a prom, and John Krasinski like watched a fake prom movie and was doing talking over it and just talking about what the real high school experience is versus, oh, there's always these people fighting over who's prom king and prom queen. And and it's like, I was popular in high school. I'm like, I don't even know who my person was. Like, nobody cared about that. I'm from Boulder. You know, we're like, Renault, the coolest person in my school is way closer to what like a Gen Zer is now, who's like, who's the person donating the most community hours? It wasn't like we didn't even like have a cheerleading squad until I was, you know, because everybody's experience is different. But yeah, like you were talking, James, about like Firefly and that going off and everybody wanting to follow that. I'm like, oh my God, I would have loved to have a Nathan Fillion, the transition from him going to Castle, being this, you know, he had such a huge fan base. That was the first time I ever watched a serial, right? That's like a cop show. I've never watched any of the the Wolf shows, any of that. But yeah, I missed Firefly, and I'm like, I'm gonna watch whatever this guy is on. He's amazing. If I could have had him doing a commentary on his own show, that would have been the dream come true for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there like that, and there's a lot of different examples you could use. And yeah, I find that, having access to, someone from the movie doing a commentary, and you can, have a global audience and the whole community, and watching them give the commentary live, it becomes very meaningful to a lot of people. And again, going back to what Phil said, it's intimacy. It's creating that intimate environment that we're missing from digital content.
And people miss that, I feel like now more than ever. I mean, that is the only gift from COVID, is just your community, the people who you actually care about. I mean, yeah, being able to watch them with that. It's like my family now has a group chat that has continued since COVID, that all of everyone is on, and that's how everyone communicates. So you don't have to send out 15 emails for one thing, a birthday, a this, a that. And again, people are always like, hey, guess what? I'm watching this show right now. I think so-and-so and so-and-so would like it, and my Uncle Rick would not like it. He only watches like where people's heads get hacked off. He loves the thriller scaries. But again,
everyone has an Uncle Rick.
I think
Right.
I am one.
We are gonna move on, and these are some Q&As. Hold on one sec, they're being edited. I'm just gonna go into the first question. Can you discuss the potential impact of Vabble on traditional distribution models within the entertainment industry, such as theaters and cable television? Do any of my distributor guys want to take that?
John, you want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Thanks.
Sorry, Phil.
It's funny. I was thinking about this and I lost my train of thought from something that you just said, Carissa. But it's like, one of the things that like I want to touch on is like, sometimes something is in the theatrical space and then it goes into the streaming or the television space, or more frequently, I guess it's the opposite. Something starts on the television side and then or the streaming side, and it evolves into the theatrical space. A lot of times, because it's funny, we kept talking about Firefly and how that was sort of this underserved audience that was on this, I think it was Fox television show. And then I actually, I was lucky enough to work on the feature. I was on the marketing and distribution team of the Firefly feature. I think it was called Serenity, actually. So
It was, don't worry, I watched that too.
Yeah, but the thing is like we lost a lot of our potential audience who watched, the episodic television content that was on a different medium, and turning it into a 30 or a 90-minute 2-hour movie in the theatrical space where you had to go to the theaters to watch it. Like there was something that got lost in translation there. And I think that's one of the cool things about Vabble. Like I feel like Vabble is the kind of streaming platform, there's such a it's like censorship resistant, but I also feel like it's content resistant streaming, where it's like multiple types of content can exist in the same platform. Like you could have a theatrical version of something, you could have an episodic version of the same content. I've heard that HBO is actually, or Max is actually doing that now with for lack of a better term, the Dune universe. They've had 2 theatrical movies that are based off of, originally based off of books, the IP, but there's been other iterations. There's been theatrical movies in the 80s, in the early 2000s. There were, I believe, cable television evolution, miniseries, and now they're going to kind of transmedia the Dune universe, if you will. And I think that's one of the cool things about Vabble is like any type of content, short form content about the same universe, episodic content about that same universe, or theatrical style, feature length content about that universe could all exist side by side. And you want to talk about the streaming algorithms, the traditional streaming algorithms that suggest things you maybe don't want to watch. If you're in that universe, if you're a fan of that universe, the Firefly universe, the Dune universe, whatever universe, a universe yet to be created, all of those can exist side by side on the Vabble platform. So I think that's one of the cool and disruptive, if you will, things about the distribution platform is it sort of allows all those things to exist side by side.
Yeah, I would add to that that it the ecosystem that includes streaming platforms and theaters, movie theaters. I think that'll always exist. And Disney began to figure this out years before the pandemic, which forced the issue to some degree. That the only way you go theatrical is when you swing for the fences. If there's no point to swinging for the fences, don't even step up to the plate with whatever the content is. Now that leaves a giant universe of other sorts of content that has an audience. And that's where the streaming platform has, they've been able to exploit that reality. And Vabble will certainly take advantage of it as well. And the smart streaming platforms, the legacy ones, let's call them, they try to occupy both worlds and use the theatrical release of the film as a marketing platform to introduce the film to a large audience and to get the fanatical cinephiles into the theaters, but then they get the rest of the audience into their streaming platform. Vabble will certainly be able to take advantage of those kinds of opportunities as well. But again, there is a giant world out there beyond the theatrical space for really amazing content. And I think both worlds, both universes will always exist. So, I think there's been a seismic change in the size of the theatrical, world. There are movie theaters that are destined to close, who don't know they're dead yet, but they are. And, things will adjust in the marketplace. But again, that leaves a really big place for movies and all sorts of content to have a life in the streaming platform.
Yeah, I definitely think once that transition does start happening again, not just the community like of Vabble, but of your own family or your friends, the type of thing you want to see is not in the theater, you could all go watch it together on Vabble. And everything's already set up for you. It's not like where you have to FaceTime somebody, add a person, FaceTime somebody, add a person. It's like centralized so everyone can look at it.
Yeah.
Well, I sort of lost track of one of my other thoughts was Vabble is not a selfish lover. You'll be able to put your content on Vabble, and if you find a theatrical release that is okay with coexisting with Vabble, you don't have that sort of barrier where Netflix is very protective of their subscriber base by avoiding the theatrical space. And here the waters will be able to slosh back and forth, which offers another opportunity that if you're seamless about it, the right product will be able to take advantage of both universes. And I think that's a good thing for the filmmaker.
Yeah,
sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, you really touched on something there, Phil, because without naming names, and I'm not even sure I'm allowed to, but I worked on a big event movie a few years ago, and there was so much content made behind the scenes. And it was when DVD started to fall off and when streaming hadn't quite taken off to where it is today. But there was all this content that was created, not just behind the scenes content, like second screen content and narrative content that was created around this big franchise title. And so much of it to this day still hasn't been put out there just because there was no place for it. Not all of it could be on the DVD extras. And obviously not all of it was in the theatrical release of the movie. But there's a lot of expanded content out there for big event titles that maybe has never seen the light of day. And this is the perfect platform to allow that to happen.
Yeah, like film festivals are my jam, and I see a lot of films that I'm just like, how did this get made? How did like the camera technique is so extraordinary, and sure, this story isn't linear at all and makes no sense, but boy, this person has something to say and has such a unique way of saying it. And I think Vabble is like the perfect home for something like that. And maybe Uncle Rick didn't realize he liked experimental film
Yeah.
and decides, oh my goodness, there's something here that I really like. And I think like as a filmmaker, I just think you can just be so creative. Like people are making films on their phones. Like you could do a feature on your phone, put
Yeah,
it up on
Tangerine was on the phone, speaking of film festival movies.
exactly. So it's just I think it just like blows things open creatively.
We also were talking about, like, yeah, the word disruption. And again, too, that's like such a techie, but it's not just a disruption. It's something that you're supporting a system that is already there and giving more avenues to people. Like, yeah, I forgot what her name is. If I'm Susie producer and I have my movie on and it does sell and it does get a theatrical release, like yay me and everyone who worked on the project, but also yay for the studio or whoever buys it, because they have a built-in audience of people who already wanted it to get made. And I mean, there are people who, work for Netflix or CBS, where their whole entire job is trying to mine IP, and you guys are going to have a space that it's, the studio at that point can even piggyback off of you guys and see what stuff is gaining traction that they maybe don't know about, because they're in a very, very closed ecosystem of people who work the same hours, only live in LA and New York. It's like a very guarded sphere, I guess I would say.
I think also like on a cultural level, it's kind of cool. Like if, part of the beauty of film is seeing other cultures and how other people live and learning things about, people that aren't in your backyard. So I think on a cultural level, it's exciting as well. Like, I know Bitcoin is a lot more popular outside of North America than it is here. So, maybe in the Middle East or Asia, there's a filmmaker who puts something up and, it exposes a little bit of their corner of the world. That's the exciting part about international film and international voices and having a global platform.
I'm going to move on to, there are two more questions just for time. This is for James. Can you discuss any specific initiatives or projects that have been spearheaded by the advisory board to drive innovation and growth within Vabble?
So we're not in the interest of spearheading productions at this moment. And I can't speak for the board and what they've spearheaded. They all have many years of experience, and they have their own boasts to boast. But from our perspective, it was less about putting a board together and just getting content. From me as a founder, one of the most important things that I get from having these four people work with me is their lifetime experience, from the industry. And, being able to talk to Joanna, Phil, John, or Barry at any time, ask questions, get advice, and give us more of an in-depth insight from almost, some of the biggest levels that you can get to in the entertainment industry was vitally important for us, for our future. My experience, yes, I have been involved, to a certain degree in the entertainment industry, but it was specifically selling, a product to consumer. And I guess that's why we've focused on consumer quite significantly. But but from an executive level about, being, financing productions and the distribution processes, and just crazy ideas that we've had, yeah, we want to disrupt the industry, and you can look at it that way, but basically what we want to do is catch the industry, by the horns and just shake it up a little bit, and integrate into it rather than change it completely. We're not that batshit crazy. But from the board, having them here with us, being that voice of reason and giving us the insight and almost a seat at the table is huge for everyone that's been involved in our community for the past 3 or 4 years, and for us as founders and developers. It's vitally important as well. So I know that kind of deviated away from that question, but that's what we get from the board. It's less about what they can spearhead and so on.
And the final question, that's for everybody, because I know that you guys are doing, one of the guys called it undercover marketing in the videos I was watching about Vabble, from somebody who talks about cryptocurrencies, but they were just saying, you guys are already in the industry and have, 100 years of experience between everyone. So, when you've been talking to people who are filmmakers over the last year, what are their reaction to you explaining the Vabble platform to them? I don't know who wants to take that first.
Well, I'll go. I'll say I've had a number of conversations, and there's a lot of, with primarily filmmakers or distributors, people that have rights that they're trying to figure out, and they're trying to figure out how is this business going to evolve, because it's challenging, right? They don't know how they're able to monetize the content. They're not sure where they're going to find the funding to guarantee that their distribution obligations will be met. Besides, filmmakers that are saying, I don't know who what platform would be able to support my vision, and what there's a sort of like a universal feeling like this is a rife time for change, and that there needs to be alternatives than what producers have experienced in the past. Part of the challenge is sort of demystifying the blockchain component, because we've all, there's stuff in the news about, snakes in the grass that are trying to leverage, the hype about blockchain and the hype about crypto, but in what I've been spending time doing is talking about, this is a real utility. It's just another form of payment, and the smart contract eliminating middle people is just good for everyone. And it provides more funding that you can actually put back into your title at the end of the day. So it's a process of, in the other side, folks saying, I don't know where this is going, but they realize they need to take some chances. They need to test some new models. So I think there's really going to be an opportunity here for rights holders, filmmakers to say, look, I'll give it a try and we'll learn from it, because right now, what do they got to lose? There's not a whole lot for a number of most people. There's these top filmmakers who will have companies throw money at them, and they'll continue to do that to see their vision come through. So it's demystifying the blockchain piece, helping educate what smart contracts mean, and the fact that it's not like a Ponzi scheme for
Yes.
on the crypto side. It's like you have a tool that you can utilize on the platform. It has utility, and so that has it's a process. It takes some time, but I think we're getting there.
Carissa, when you ask the question, there's a coin that comes to mind with that. It has two sides, of course. And the one side is the filmmaker, which loves the opportunity to get their content seen by an audience. But there's a chicken and egg component for them, where they're kind of stuck with currently with the sort of the legacy processes to get their movies funded and someone to invest in them, and the investor is going to be interested in, does this have distribution yet? Ultimately, Vabble will be the easiest and quickest answer to that question. The most interesting thing to me is I've shared this concept of Vabble with others in the business is really on the buyer acquisition side of content. Every time I'm talking to them about a project that I'm developing and mention Vabble along the way, the biggest thing that I get back from them is the sands are constantly shifting beneath their feet. They're just trying to figure out what ultimately the whole business paradigm is going to look like. And this affects the kinds of projects that they choose. And so they're really confused by the marketplace at this moment in time. And Vabble is again unburdened by the issues that burden them. So it's going to be sort of that little mammal that scurried between the feet of the dinosaurs millions of years ago,
evolved.
and the mammal is going to evolve while the dinosaurs, either evolve with the mammals or they'll go extinct. So I find the most interesting reaction. This is the short answer to your question. The most interesting reaction I get on Vabble is from the buying side and development side of the business, where they don't know what north and south looks like at the moment. And Vabble is not burdened by this sort of confusion.
Yeah, I'd say on my end, I deal with more on the filmmaking side than on distribution these days. But the filmmakers I talk to are very excited about a new avenue of where to put their films. They can't seem to find distribution, so this is another way, and it's tough out there. So it's just a great way to to get the word out and also get their content out.
Yeah, I would just add to that, the last kind of major film. Well, we're getting ready to have the Cannes Film Marketplace in just a couple of weeks, and a couple months ago we had the big Berlin Film Market and Film Festival, and that's the kind of, those marketplaces are where you have both sides, right? You have the folks that Barry and Phil were talking about, and then you also have all the filmmakers that Joanna's talking about. And I talked to a bunch of people on both sides who went to the Berlin market that was back in February. And the thing that they noticed were there were a couple of huge acquisitions. Like there was a movie that sold with a huge movie star, and it sold for $50 million, the rights to it. And then there were a couple others in the seven and eight figure sales. There was $5 and $8 million sales. But it's like all these filmmakers, there were hundreds of movies that were good enough to screen at the Berlin Film Festival and the Berlin Marketplace that ended up basically homeless after that film market, that have great stories and that have recognizable stars in them. And like I said earlier, there's an audience for every movie, but a lot of these weren't picked up by these legacy distributors, because if you spend $50 million on a single movie, the chances of you buying something else at that marketplace are very slim to none.
Very limited.
Yeah. So like, think of all those other 99 movies that screened at that film festival or that film market that, are having a tough time finding an audience because they just didn't get acquired. Doesn't mean they're not worthy. It just means somebody else, spent a lot of money and doesn't have any more money in the purse. So that's the perfect platform. And that's a perfect place for Vabble to kind of swoop in and get those filmmakers who made these compelling pieces of content with, recognizable talent on screen, now they have a home. So that's what I'm excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything final on that, James?
It's from the filmmakers that we spoke with, and that we have agreed to work with Vabble. They're all super excited, and one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we're getting from them, and the thing that tips them over the edge is having that control. Having that control, being able to, fully say where it's distributed, for how long it's distributed. If it's picked up somewhere else, they can take it down for a while and put it back up again. Having that control allows them to be flexible, and it allows them to try out new things, and understanding that it's not exclusive, and that the money is also 100% theirs. There's no one else. We don't take any money from them as a company, or as a cryptocurrency, or as a blockchain. We take nothing from the filmmaker. So they're getting 100% of the revenue. They have full control. What's to lose? And most of the filmmakers that we've spoke with realize that, and they're happy to work with us. And that's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're going to have more and more filmmakers involved. And we're really excited for the platform to take off. We're really excited to launch the full streaming platform and start onboarding users. And we're also excited for our cryptocurrency to be kind of like that staple of blockchain entertainment means of payment, which is a huge achievement for us as well.
And so if you are one of those people who's excited, you can go to Vabble.com and join the waitlist right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'll be able to get updates on that. So that's very exciting. Just as a quick wrap up, can one person talk about your timeline moving forward?
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at launching the next part of the product last week of April, and we're hoping to launch the full product by the end of May. All going well, but again, with development things change, but that's the plan.
Just like with movies, schedules change.
Exactly.
Right, there's always some last minute thing that has to be worked out. That is all of the questions that I had. Is there anyone who has any final nuggets of wisdom that they wanted to impart? Just go make sure you sign up on Vabble.com.
Sign up on Vabble.com, follow us on Twitter, join our community, and get involved in the cryptocurrency as well, because it all gels well together, and we're about to take off.